Welcome everyone.
Right. Can we start?
Yep, happy for you to start, or if you wanted to give it a couple of minutes, but yeah, the recording has begun, so happy for you to kick us off.
Okay. So I'll kick us off. It's 12 o'clock, so I'll kick us off. Good afternoon, and everyone, on behalf of the Forestry Commission Disability, Neurodivergence and Carers Staff Network, I would like to welcome you all to our webinar today on discrimination, disability, and making a difference. So Sarah Petherbridge will be delivering the session today on behalf of Wellity Global, and I'll hand over to Sarah shortly. So our speaker today, Sarah Petherbridge, is a passionate and award-winning disability trainer and speaker who draws on her lived experiences as part of her disability awareness training. Today, the session will run as follows. Sarah will speak for around 45 minutes, and then we will take questions afterwards. You can ask questions by putting them in the chat function. And if you require closed captions or subtitles, you can find them in the options of Teams. And please note that the session is being recorded for anyone who wasn't able to attend today. So why is this such a valuable subject? Discrimination arising from a disability is unfortunately very common. There are 16 million disabled people in the UK, 23% are working age adults. So this session delves into discriminatory bias, explores misconceptions and stereotypes, and how to take action against discrimination, and encourage everyone to ensure an inclusive culture in the Forestry Commission. I'll now hand over to Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Welcome everyone. We're pleased to be here today to give you some training on disability discrimination and how you can make a difference in reducing or avoiding discrimination. But before we dive into the training, I just thought I would share a bit of background information about myself. So I was born profoundly deaf into a hearing family. I grew up learning to speak and lip read, so my communication style is oral. I do know a bit of British Sign Language, but I'm not fluent in BSL. I worked in the corporate sector as a senior manager for several years before making the jump into running my own business as a trainer and speaker on disability and inclusion. So you can have to bear with me. I came down with a cold and a cough over the weekend. I'm a little bit husky, and I do have a bit of a deaf accent, so hopefully you'll be able to follow me throughout today's session. But if there's anything that you don't understand, please do drop a comment in the chat box, and I'm happy to repeat it again. Okay. So just a few housekeeping rules, which I think had already been covered to some extent. But one thing I would like to comment now is we would encourage you to get as much as possible from this session. So we would like you to participate and also interact throughout the session. So it's not going to be just me talking non-stop. So do participate in this session. And Catherine said, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box and we can put those up. This is a safe space. There's no judgment involved. There's no right or wrong questions or comments. Don't be afraid to put any questions in the chat box and we can put those up. So please stay on mute while you're not speaking, and we would ask you to be polite and respectful to everyone on the session. So those are the main housekeeping rules. So we'll just move on to the agenda. Okay, so the objective of today's training session is to get you familiar with what is disability discrimination. and learn how and why, also learn how that impacts disabled people. We'll also cover how and why it arises in the first place. So it arises from misconceptions and stereotypes that people may have around disability. So we're going to look at some of the more common misconceptions and stereotypes around disability. We will then look at what you can do to actually avoid discrimination in the first place and hope to create an inclusive workplace by way of inclusive behaviours. So underpinning all of this will be empathy. So we're going to understand what do we mean by empathy and also explore the difference between sympathy and empathy and why the distinction is so important. So that's the objective of today's training. So we're going to kick off with what is disability discrimination? And the best place to look for a definition of disability discrimination is the Equality Act 2010. And this defines disability discrimination as you are treated less well or put at a disadvantage for a reason that relates to your disability in one of the 6 situations which are covered in the Act. So these situations include things like the workplace, public spaces and transport. The treatment could be a one-off action. It could be the application of a rule or a policy, or it could be things like physical or communication barriers, which make accessing something really difficult or impossible. The discrimination doesn't have to be intended to be unlawful. You can inadvertently discriminate against someone. As a person, you are protected from discrimination under the Act if you fall within the definition of disability as set out within the Act. And I'll just give you that definition. So under the Act, you are disabled if you have a physical or a mental impairment that has a substantial and a long-term negative effect on your ability to do normal daily activity. So long-term in the context means something that has lasted or is likely to last at least a year. And substantial means something that is more than just minor or trivial and has a significant impact on your daily activity, like, for example, getting up and getting dressed in the morning. So the definition covers a wide range of disabilities. It's not just those with an obvious visible difference, so it includes invisible disabilities. There's no requirement within the definition for there to be a visible difference. And it also covers mental impairment too. So it's quite a wide-ranging definition of disability. So what are the types of discrimination that you are protected from within the Act? So there are 6 types of discrimination within the Act. The first one is direct discrimination, and that is when someone treats you worse than another person who isn't disabled in a similar or same situation because of your disability. So, for example, a disabled person gets turned down for a job because of their disability, even though they may be the best person for that job. Indirect discrimination happens when an organisation has a particular policy or a way of working that has a worse impact on disabled people compared to people who are not disabled. Unless the employer is able to show that there's a really good reason for that policy. So, for example, insisting that every applicant for a particular job has to have a driver's licence, and that can discriminate against those who don't drive because of their disability, unless it's for a bus driver job, for example. Failure to make reasonable adjustment. So under the Equality Act, employers have a duty to make sure that disabled people can do their jobs as easily as able people by way of reasonable adjustment. And discrimination can arise if the employer doesn't provide reasonable adjustment when it's under a duty to do so. Discrimination arising from disability. So the act protects you from being badly treated because of something that is connected to your disability. For example, needing time off for a medical appointment. So an example of discrimination there would be someone with cancer is prevented from receiving a bonus because of all the time that person has taken off to receive medical treatment. Harassment occurs when someone treats you in a way that makes you feel humiliated or offended. So, for example, use of what we call ableist language that can devalue a disabled person. And then finally, victimisation is when you're treated badly because you've made a complaint of discrimination under the Act. So these are the different types of disability discrimination as specified in the Act. We're going to turn to the prevalence of disability discrimination. So all these figures are taken from a survey carried out by a charity called Scope. And these statistics clearly show the prevalence of disability discrimination in the UK. So in terms of the workforce, the statistics show the employment rate of disabled people is 53%, just over half, compared to non-disabled people of 82%. And disabled people are almost twice as likely to be unemployed as non-disabled people, and 3 times as likely to be economically inactive. And that's not really surprising for someone like myself. It's very difficult to get a job sometimes, the challenges of finding a job. But also when you're actually in employment, very often disabled people are faced with further challenges like a lack of reasonable adjustment or a toxic workplace culture. So sometimes they end up leaving their job. So while those statistics are shocking, they're not really surprising either. And in terms of attitudes, 3 out of 4 disabled people have experienced negative attitudes or behaviours in the last 5 years. And of those, 87% said it had a really negative effect on their daily life. So these statistics show, the prevalence of disability discrimination in the UK, which is far and wide. So what are the impacts of that discrimination on disabled people? And there's so many impacts, both in the workplace and in society. And this slide just covers a few of them to give you some idea of the impact. So first of all, missed work opportunities and promotion. That happens when non-disabled people are favoured over disabled people at work. So we end up losing out on work opportunities. And that can have a really demoralising effect on disabled people. The lack of flexibilities in working style, a way of working within the organisation may not be very flexible and doesn't really accommodate a person's disability, and therefore can cause stress and anxiety in that disabled employee. And that happened to me at the start of my career before video calls became more prevalent. We were expected to do client communication by way of client conference calls, which were audio calls, and that was something that I found extremely difficult to do and caused me a lot of stress and anxiety. But that was the way of making client contact in those days, and that's the particular way of working that was the norm back then. Not being able to perform well at the same level as your peers because you haven't got the reasonable adjustment to enable you to do your job, so you're not really performing very well. Also, the lack of social interaction, people avoiding you because of unconscious bias and hence discrimination. and that can lead to isolation and loneliness. And being disabled can be very lonely at times. Negative attitude, being subjective to negative attitudes and one dumping. They, for example, people assuming that because you're disabled, you can't do the job, and therefore you're missing out on work opportunities. Also, being subjective to pity, people feeling sorry for you, but not really doing anything to support you, rather than showing empathy and supporting her. Non-inclusive language, so for example, ableist language that can devalue someone with a disability and make them feel inferior to able people. So comment like, oh, well, you don't look disabled, or oh, it could be worse, you're making a big fuss about nothing, or you're making this up. So all of this means that you're not being believed or dismissed, and therefore you're diminishing our experiences as a disabled person. Also, derogatory language as well. The blind leading the blind, spastic, falling on deaf ears, or you stand drunk. All of these can be quite offensive and hurtful. The lack of accessibility in workplaces and public spaces and transport due to physical and communication barriers mean that we can't get to do things that we want to do or get to places very well. So we are prevented from doing things or going to places. And even if we do have accessibility, we only get limited choices. So, for example, accessible facilities in public spaces may only be limited to a wheelchair ramp for someone in a wheelchair. It doesn't actually cover other disabilities. Or another example is that I'm a bit of a culture vulture. I love going to see plays and films, but I can only go when there are captioned performances, and they're very few and far between. And sometimes there's just none at all. And then, not surprisingly, the mental health impact of discrimination and disabled people, having to deal with all these barriers and challenges every day, can have a real impact on our self-worth and lead to things like depression, anxiety, stress, or even burnout. And so it's not really surprising that people who are disabled are 5 times more likely to have mental health issues than those who are not disabled. Next slide. So how did discrimination arise? And I think there are a number of reasons why discrimination arises. So first of all, there's just a general lack of awareness and understanding around disability. People and businesses having the wrong attitude and misconceptions around disability because of that lack of awareness and understanding. And that can lead to biases against disabled people and therefore discrimination. But also businesses are not really fully aware of their legal requirements under the Equality Act. So, for example, there are duties to provide reasonable adjustments to make sure that disabled people can do their job. How the world is constructed doesn't help. We live in a very ableist world with ableist infrastructure, buildings and public spaces. We also have ableist laws and policies. All of these are constructed without much thought for the disabled population. And on an individual level, discrimination can arise from misconception and stereotypes that people have around disabled people, the wrong ideas about people. And that can in turn lead to unconscious bias against disabled people and therefore discrimination. So there's a ripple effect from having the wrong misconceptions in the first place. Next slide. Good. We're going to have a group discussion. So using the chat box function, I want you to have a think about what are the most common misconceptions and stereotypes that people may have around disability and disabled people? So have a think about that. And if you've got any ideas, do drop them in the chat box. As I said, it's a safe space, there's no right and wrong answers, but have a think about what are the most common misconceptions and stereotypes that people have around disability and disabled people. Okay, so we've got one, we've got a question. Okay, one is put in that it won't be at hard working or productive. That's a really common misconception. That disability is visible. Yeah, there's something that having a disability makes you less able or lazy. Yeah, that's a really common misconception. That all disabilities should be visible. Everyone who needs a disabled needs a word turn. That they're less intelligent. That it would take a lot of effort and resources to support them. That we are a one-dimensional group. Some really great comments here. That all disability should be visible. Yeah, there's some really great comments there. That very few people are disabled and make a very small minority of the population. Well, in the UK, there's 16 million of us who have a disability. So we're not really a small minority. We're quite a big proportion of people in the UK. People with disability cannot lead a full and productive life. Very common misconception that we're all sitting home not doing anything, watching TV. Disability only affects older people. There's some really good misconceptions, but also some other comments like we can feel fearful of people with disabilities. They're not really knowing how to respond and engage. We'll talk a bit more about that later on. That people with disabilities may not be the expert on what they need. Really great misconception. People assuming that they know what we need without asking us the right question. When you ask children, disability means you're missing a limb, again, really focusing on visible differences. Some really, really great ones there. And I think, we will cover some of those later on in this training session. So, so thank you for that. So just looking at the common misconceptions further, there's so many of them, and some of them have been covered already by yourself. So we'll just go through some examples here on this slide. So believing disability is only visible, as some people have commented already, or physical. Remember the definition of disability includes invisible disabilities and mental health impairment. Basing disability on appearances. So people have this weird idea of what a disabled person is supposed to look like. I've had people coming up to me saying, well, you don't look like a deaf person. Okay, so what does a deaf person supposed to look like then? There's this sort of weird misconception. Not capable to do the work. I think someone picked that up, the one idea that you are disabled and therefore you can't do the job, despite having the right skill to do the job, and that can lead to missed work opportunity. Low expectations is the big one. So people thinking that we're not capable of doing anything much and therefore we're not given any opportunity. I don't know if anyone saw the video that went viral on World Down Syndrome Day. It was a great video about changing people's expectations of what we can do. So it started off with a person with Down syndrome, and she wasn't given any opportunity to do anything because she had low expectations of her. And then as the video progressed, it shows that if you assume that I can and maybe I will, that was the headline for that video, and change your expectation, you end up giving that person more opportunities and that person is achieving a lot more than you expect. So I thought that was a really powerful video about changing your mindset around expectation, and a brilliant headline of assume that I can and maybe I will. And I think in my experience, when I was growing up as a profoundly deaf girl, and people thought I was just going to work in a factory and that was it. So I'm pleased to say that I've actually compounded that expectation, and I'm gone on to have a successful career. But it really is it can be a real issue, people having the bigotry of low expectation. Lack of intelligence really common misconception. People think they're disabled and therefore not intelligent. And along the similar line, thinking that deaf people can't hear and therefore, again, they're not intelligent. But there is no correlation between disability and intelligence. There's so many intelligent disabled people out there. Dealing with someone's disability is too inconvenient, it's too difficult. I think someone picked that up earlier, and that can lead to bias against working with disabled people. People would rather work with able people. And again, that's not true. If you have the right reasonable adjustment, that disabled person can do the job just as well as the able person. And I think, that happened to me as well in my career. People would look at me and think, oh, she's deaf, she's too difficult, she's too inconvenient. I go and work with someone else who isn't deaf. And that can lead to discrimination. Avoiding work and claiming benefit. One of my biggest bugbears. People think that we're work shy and we're claiming benefit. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We would love to get jobs, but we find, we're faced with so many challenges in getting jobs. And then even when we are in employment, we are faced with even more challenges to stay in the job because of a lack of reasonable adjustment and so on. So I think that's a really common misconception to me that we are work shy and we rather claim benefit. Hidden disabilities do not have access needs. It's a really common misconception for someone to think that you need to have a visible disability to have access needs. But actually, we all have access needs. We all need access and support and empathy. And then finally, not having a full life. I think someone picked that up as well. Really misconception to me. They think that if you are disabled, you don't have a full life. And in my case, despite my profound deafness, I love going to see plays and films. I go to gigs and music festivals. I love traveling. So I would say I do have a full life, despite my disability. Okay. So people having the wrong attitude and misconception around disability can lead to unconscious bias against disabled people. And by having that unconscious bias, you can inadvertently create discrimination against disabled people. So where could our unconscious bias play in discrimination? So what is unconscious bias? So unconscious bias is the brain making judgment and decisions quickly, which categorize people and things in a certain way. And it happens without us being aware. And it's based on learned attitudes, misconceptions and stereotypes that exist in our subconscious part of the brain and which affect the way that we act and think. So you're not really aware, but that's why it's called unconscious bias. So there are lots of different types of unconscious bias. We all have them. The more common ones are as follows: affinity bias, which means preference for people like ourselves. They would gravitate to people that look like us, and avoid anyone who is different. And that can lead to discrimination by excluding other groups of people. Perception bias is where you have stereotypes and assumptions about different groups of people based on having the wrong perceptions about them. And again, you end up excluding groups of people based on those wrong perceptions. Confirmation bias is when you look for information to confirm your own ideas and beliefs, and you ignore information that doesn't. And what that happens there is it can lead to incorrect decisions that are not really objective and discriminatory, and therefore leads to inequality in the workplace. And then finally, we'll have group thinking bias, which is making decisions just to keep the group harmony and avoid any conflict. And again, that could lead to making incorrect decisions which are not objective and can discriminate against certain people. So we all have these biases, every one of us, even myself. So where do we get these biases from? What are its influences? Well, things like family and upbringing, they have a big part to play. As children, we take on our parents, our family, ideas and attitudes and assumptions. The culture that we live in and grow up in also has a big influence as well. Media plays a big part. If you think about the stereotypes that are out there around disability, for example, an image of a person in a wheelchair is everywhere. If you go to a disabled car parking space, it's someone in a wheelchair. If you go to a disabled toilet, it's someone in a wheelchair. All of this reinforcing that stereotype that to be disabled, you have to be in a wheelchair or have a visible difference. And then finally, your friends and your socialization, who you're interacting with, who your friends are. Again, you can pick up other people's ideas and assumptions and stereotypes there. So all of these have an influence on your unconscious bias. So in terms of the impact of unconscious bias can be profound, and it can spread throughout all areas of society and in the workplace. And in terms of the workplace, I know we've covered this previously, but it is worth reiterating. It can lead to discrimination in terms of work opportunities and promotion because you are biased against working with disabled people. It can also lead to inaccessible content and processes and social events that doesn't really meet the needs of disabled people. It can lead to outdated and non-inclusive language. And also it has an impact on the mental health and well-being of your disabled employees. And one other point I would also add here is that if a company doesn't address unconscious bias and hence discrimination, it would also hinder diversity in the workplace. So it has an impact on your ability to recruit diverse individuals from different backgrounds. And by not having that diverse workforce, it also hinders the company's ability to offer really creative solutions, thinking outside the box, and coming up with really good solutions to problems and generate new innovative ideas. And that has an impact on your bottom line, i.e. the profit. So it makes good business sense to reduce your unconscious bias. So what can you do as an individual to reduce your unconscious bias? So first of all, be aware of your own preferences and biases. And we all have them, to just constantly check them every day. And if you do find you have a bias, challenge your misconceptions, your assumptions and stereotypes which underpin those biases. Why do you have that biases? Notice any bias in others and feed back to them politely. be open to other people's perspective when you're making decisions. So stick them out and look at problem as a diamond. Look at the problem from all different angles. Don't just look at the problems like two sides of the same coin, but really look at the problems like a diamond and get other people's perspective. And then finally, be really explicit about the importance of understanding and valuing differences in your everyday behaviour. So all of this can help you reduce your unconscious bias. So what else can you do to create an inclusive workplace that actually avoids discrimination in the first place? So the next couple of slides are some of the inclusive behaviours. So we're going to move on. Okay, so the next couple of slides are some examples of inclusive behaviours that can help create an inclusive workplace that minimises discrimination in the first place. So avoid making assumptions around disabilities. So ask us the right question, be curious, learn about our disability and our lived experiences. And in that way, you avoid making the wrong assumptions and misconceptions. Understand that all disabilities are a spectrum. We are all different. We're not the same. Each one of us is unique. We have unique lived experiences, unique aspect needs. Also focus on our abilities and not our disabilities. So focus on what we can do despite our abilities and not what we can't do because of our disability. Engage early with us in relationship, really important. It's always daunting when someone new joins the team, but doubly daunting when you have a disability. Ask before helping. Don't assume that you know what we need. We're the expert. We tell you what we need. So personalise your approach and ask, how can we help you? And then provide those accommodations or adjustment proactively. Look out for anyone who may feel left out or like an outsider. So give them an opportunity to share their views at meetings. I think that's a really important point if you are facilitating meetings, to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to share their views during the meeting. And someone put a really good post on LinkedIn a few months ago about the 6 second rule. And it was written by someone who was neurodivergent. And she was saying that during the meeting, she needed an extra 6 seconds to basically listen and process the information in her own mind and then respond because of the way her brain operated. And I thought that was a really good point, and it could, apply to other disabilities. So, for example, someone who stammers, they need 6 seconds sometimes to respond. It actually applies to someone like myself who lip reads. The lip reading is not a natural process. It's really hard work. So sometimes we need a bit of extra time to lip read, process what we think we've lip read, and then respond back. So I think that's a really good point. If you are facilitating a meeting and you have people there who have disabilities, is to give them that extra time to process that information and also respond back. So you're giving them an opportunity to share their views. Flex your working times and value differences in how we do things. So ask us what is the best way to work with you, and then flex your working time. Really important. Call out any non-inclusive and discrimination behaviours. Be brave, call it out, and then politely speak back to them. Not an easy thing to do, but really important in creating an inclusive workplace. Talk to us like anyone else. We are human. Please don't ignore us. Please talk to us. Get over your fear of offending us. We don't bite. We're just educated for next time, but please talk to us. Remaining silent and not having confrontation with us just perpetuate some of the stereotypes misconceptions that then feed into bias and therefore discrimination. So it's really important that you talk to them. And while you are talking to us, be respectful in your language. Avoid ableist statement and stereotype. And ask us who would like to identify ourselves. Really important. Not everyone likes the word disability. Some people find it negative. And would rather be, identified as something else. I personally don't have a problem with the word disability. I identify myself as a disabled person. But it's really important to understand that people do have their own personal preferences. Avoid inspiration porn. So this is something that some of us have a bit of a problem with, to be called inspiring, just for living on, day by day and overcoming all the challenges that we face every day. We would rather you help us bring down those challenges rather than call it inspiring. By all means, call it inspiring if we're climbing Mount Everest or participating in Paralympic, but not just for, dealing with challenges every day. And, help us with empathy and not sympathy. Find safe space to talk to us, really important. Listen to our lived issues and our experiences, and then empower us by being an advocate to raise awareness and overcome the challenges in the workplace. Support someone different to you consistently. Get rid of your affinity bias, go to gravitate to people like them, but support someone who may have a disability. And then finally, check in on us regularly and ask those 3 magic words, are you okay? So all of these inclusive behaviours will help to create an inclusive workplace and minimise discrimination in the workplace. Okay, so if we're going to quickly go through this box just to talk about sympathy versus empathy. And it's really important because underlying all these inclusive behaviours I talked about is empathy. Some of us have some backup, others less so, but you can work on it intellectually. And why does it matter? Empathy is the hallmark of an active ally that supports disabled people by understanding the challenges that we face and then committing to help us bring down those challenges. So this slide shows the difference between sympathy and empathy. So sympathy is something where you're just feeling pity and sorrow, and you're just saying, I feel sorry for you, but you're not really engaging with us to understand our lived experiences. You're not sitting down to talk to us and listen to us. And also you're not showing any willingness to support us to bring down those challenges. Whereas if you move up to the top right-hand corner, you move towards empathy and compassion, and there you're becoming more understanding of our lived experiences. You're sitting down and listening to us. You're showing compassion, but also you're showing more willingness to help support us and to bring down those challenges that we face. So that's why it's really important, to show empathy and compassion rather than just pity and sympathy. Okay, we just come to the end of our session, and I just thought I'd leave with some key points to take away and remember. So the Equality Act protects people from discrimination if they fall within the definition of disability. And that definition may be wider than you think. It covers invisible disability and mental impairment. It's not just someone who has a visible difference. Understand the different types of discrimination and also the impact that these have on disabled people, both in society and in the workplace. And discrimination arises from a lack of understanding and awareness around disability. It can also arise from having unconscious bias due to misconceptions and stereotypes. So you can help challenge those stereotypes and misconceptions and dismantle the bias by demonstrating inclusive behaviours and creating an inclusive workplace. And by doing that, you help to create a safe space for everyone where everyone is treated respectfully and equally without discrimination. So these are some of the key takeaway points you could take away. And with the next slide, we have a QR code that you can use on your phone to provide feedback. There's also a link in the chat box that is provided by Gray. If you can't use the QR code, but you can use that link to give us some feedback. But we hope you've enjoyed this session, and thank you very much for having me. Thank you. There's loads of questions here. I don't know if we've got time to go through them, or loads of comments, but it's been great to do all these comments. Yeah, there's lots of comments about the use of the word disability, and again, that's all down to personal preferences as well. Yeah, if you have any more questions, do drop them in. But then I'll hand over back to Catherine, I think.
I think there's a couple. Oh,
there's-
sorry.
I was just going to say there's some questions in the chat.
Sorry, Sarah. I think there's some questions in the chat for you.
Okay. Right. How do you respond to people when they make comment? Then when people find out I'm autistic, they often say, "Oh well, we're all a bit autistic." I find this upsetting and frustrating. I guess, yeah, I think you've got to remember that first of all, it's not a reflection on you personally. It's a reflection on their behaviours and their attitudes. So hard it can be, try not to take them personally, but also would feedback them politely and just say, look, you know, I find the comment upsetting and inappropriate. Just really educating people. I mean, I know it's hard not to get upset, but you know, it's all about educating people and you know, being brave to give them that feedback and say, I don't think that comment is appropriate, and explaining why. So you know, it's lots of practice. I mean, if people make comments to me about my deafness, I do feedback politely. Sometimes I feel incredibly irritating within my team when I point out how things aren't inclusive. How do you deal with that feeling and a concern that it may come up with you being difficult because you are disabled? Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's just being brave to feedback politely and just to point out that, you know, they're not being inclusive and coming up with suggestions how to make things more inclusive. I think the problem is that people are just have a lack of awareness and understanding about disability and inclusion. And the more we can educate people about that, you know, the better things would be. I mean, it shouldn't all be down to us, you know, to educate people. There's loads of ways to educate people, like, you know, the training today, for example. But it is, you know, being brave and pointing things down. But also, I think making sure that you have allies in the workplace that help you and empower you and be your advocate. That those allies will stand up for you and will point out when things are not being inclusive. Because you can't do it all by yourself, but it's too tiring. And to make sure you have an ally in the workplace who can point things out and you know, feedback politely. So I had allies in my workplace who would basically support me and you know, make sure that things are inclusive because you can't do it all by yourself. Our recruitment process is confusing because we know if someone recruited disabled if they declared it, but when should we discuss with that person about their disability? and who should be in the know about it. Yeah, I think if they have declared it, I think they have disclosed it. So I think it would be appropriate to ask that person, how can we help? I think it's going back to personalising your approach and asking them, how can we help you? But you've got to remember, there's no legal requirement for people to disclose their disability, that we're not required to say we have a disability or what help we need. There's no legal requirement. So if they haven't disclosed, you're going to have to wait for them to make that disclosure. But try and make it a safe space for them to disclose. People will only make a disclosure about their disability if there's a safe space. And if they don't experience psychological safety in the workplace, they're not going to open up and talk about their disability and ask for help, because they'll be afraid of repercussions for their career. They'll be afraid of judgment and bias. You need to create a safe space by way of an inclusive behaviour. But if they have declared it, then I think it would be appropriate for the line manager to ask, how can we help you? Is there anything you need? Don't assume that you know what they need. But I think it should be the line manager. It's hard to find a job when you have more than one disability, and even harder to progress in your career. What's your idea? Well, yeah, that's quite a big open question. We could be talking about it for hours on that. I think all I can say is really own your disability, make sure you're talking to the right people, and making sure you get all the right needs-able adjustments in play, and just make sure you're getting all the help you need, and have allies in the workplace to help you as well. But that's quite a big conversation to have, really. Where do you stand if your disability leads to an increase in sick leave over the triggers? Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be mindful of the mental health impact of having a disability, and we are we're 5 times more likely to have mental health impact. So I think employers should be understanding and empathetic around that, and give support to that employee who's having mental health impact. So with disability often comes mental health impact, that the two are not separate. So I think is asking for compassion and support around that. So I think we're going to run out of time, but hopefully I've answered some of those questions for you. But if you do have any more questions, do feel free to put them in your feedback.
Thanks very much, Sarah. I just wanted to add to everyone in Forestry Commission that obviously in terms of support for you, we've got the Disability, Neurodivergence and Carer Staff Network, which everyone's welcome to join. We're a friendly bunch, so do head over to Teams and join us. And if anyone's interested, we're always looking for new steering group members as well, if anyone would like to join. Workplace Adjustment Passport, which is available to you, and that will help you to have a conversation with your line manager about reasonable adjustments. There's also the Stress Risk Assessment, which you can go through with your line manager, which could help you at work. And there's obviously the occupational health partners, and they can also aid a discussion between HR, your manager and yourself about reasonable adjustments and supporting you to thrive at work. So those are the things that are available to you. I think if there's no more questions.
I just like to say, I think there's lots of comments, really. I think I've covered some of the questions. But thank you for all the feedback so far.
If that's,
go, Catherine.
Go on. I was just going to say, just like to take the opportunity to thank you, Sarah, and also to Wellity Global for organising this. It's been hugely beneficial. We have recorded it, so it will be uploaded on our Forestry Commission Diversity and Wellbeing YouTube channel, and we'll share the link with everyone and also on our intranet. So yeah, really appreciate your time. So thank you.
You're very welcome, and hopefully, it came across okay despite my clothes. So apologies for my very low and husky voice there.
That's perfect.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye.